The comments that were made sort of pissed me off. I mean, it was sort of a backhanded compliment, and then it was a dig at the same time. Our crew work was flawless. Then when Dennis began to push us, we began to have screw-ups. So I suggested today that every move that we make on the boat be in race mode. When we get out to Point Loma, we'll hoist the sail, it'll be in race mode. We change mains, it'll be in race mode. If we tack, it'll be in race mode. We change a jib today, it'll be in race mode. I think it's time we get our shit together and go after this asshole down the pike.
Nobody's done the complete run that Buddy Melges has.
3 Mallories, an Olympic gold medal and a bronze medal.
Melges, Jr., USA.
You know, one of the greatest sailors that the world's ever seen.
If it was the most important thing for Buddy to win a sailboat race, he would win.
He's an absolutely fierce competitor.
I remember him slamming his fist on the deck and saying, "Damn it, I want this place."
But there was an item that was still on Buddy's list, even though he wouldn't say it publicly, that was even bigger: the America's Cup.
You would think they would be going out to, the sun is up pretty high, they'd be going out to feed. Oh, here they come, they're coming over. There's quite a few geese there, huh?
Yeah.
There, buddy.
With a grandson by his side, Buddy Melges waits while his son rigs a boat for an early morning sail.
Oh, look at this, they're coming right back. Don't tell me it didn't work.
His sailing career is behind him, but Buddy's instincts still direct him to what's happening on and above the water, even if it's just a few geese crossing Lake Geneva near his home base in Zenda, Wisconsin.
Look at that, huh? Hey, buddy, did I turn them right up the shore?
There was a time when competing was everything. He won national titles, Olympic medals, and world championships. But Buddy still felt something was missing. And so began a quest to win an America's Cup and secure a place in sailing history for the man they call the Wizard of Zenda. It's day one of training for this group of world-class sailors. The 29th America's Cup yacht race is almost a year and a half away. But it's never too early to begin when you're fighting for a crew position. They're competing to make Bill Koch's America Cubed team, one of 8 that will battle for the 1992 America's Cup. Koch was a successful businessman and billionaire. He'd only started sailing 5 years earlier, but was now focused on sailing's biggest prize.
I looked upon the America's Cup as a management problem. And there was a very simple metric: cross the finish line first.
The America's Cup is one of the oldest and most prestigious competitions in all of sports. The race began in the 1850s and got its name from a yacht called America that won the first match. It continues today, some 170 years later.
In terms of being the best, highest, most elite event that represents the sport, yeah, the America's Cup is the Super Bowl, the World Series of sailing.
Koch's co-helmsman in the Maxis was Gary Jobson, a world-class sailor with a long list of credentials, including an America's Cup victory in 1977.
So I got going with Bill, and Bill is a MIT PhD in chemical engineering, vast fortune, and wanted to win the America's Cup and was ready to put a lot of resources to it.
Is there anybody that I forgot?
Jobson was already heavily involved in the America Cubed campaign. He was helping Koch recruit crew members.
Maverick, Keith,
Henry, Chip.
But it became clear that we needed some more horsepower in sailing and design. He had all his tech guys, but they're good at analyzing things, but not so good at coming up with original ideas. So I recommend we get Buddy Melges.
Buddy had skippered a failed run at the 1987 America's Cup. His Heart of America team was eliminated early from the Challenger trials, soundly beaten because it lacked the money and technology to compete.
And he went through one America's Cup and made a lot of mistakes, but what I found, you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your winnings.
Buddy had been involved with some group that was trying to put something together with the cup, but it wasn't going very well.
We were stumbling along, and all of a sudden, Bill Koch came along.
He won 16 or 17 world championships. You know, he had won a medal in the Olympics, and he designed sailboats.
Check it again, check it again.
Thanks, Andy. I'd like to introduce our skipper and president of the foundation, Bill Koch. Bill?
The America Cubed Syndicate reviewed 500 resumes and required 100 sailing tryouts before announcing the unusually large crew of 38 sailors.
The main criteria has been attitude, teamwork, and ability.
You know, when I first started off, the idea was find the best crew members, get the highest top guns, and go out there and then you beat everybody. Well, that turned out to be a disaster because their egos got in the way. You know, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. Let me sail the boat.
For those who made the cut, there was no lack of sailing success.
There's 38 people, 26 have participated in the America's Cup or America's Cup trials in the past. There are 19 world champions, half a dozen collegiate All-Americans.
And I really worked hard to talk Bill into accepting Buddy onto our team. And Bill accepted, let's get Buddy, and we did.
People have asked me why I've joined this group, and I think it's pretty obvious to me and to all of you when you look around at the talent that's been assembled here.
The crew was set, but one big question remained. Who would be at the helm, steering the boat? Koch required Jobson, Buddy, and several others to try out for the job. And even though he'd only been sailing a short time, Koch himself would be competing for time at the wheel.
I told my crew that I'm going to be on the boat, period. Why would I give money to someone else to sponsor his ego? You know, I looked at it and said, I might as well sponsor my own ego and have a lot of fun at the same time.
Koch's insistence on taking the helm became the focus of the media and sparked a minor uprising with some of the crew.
Nice lift here.
Buddy would eventually find himself in the middle of the revolt, required to pick a side and decide if the America Cubed campaign would survive or be ripped apart.
That was only good for a bronze medal.
Winning an Olympic bronze medal would be seen as a great achievement by most people.
We're getting ready to tack.
But Buddy Melges looks at a photo from 50 years earlier and remembers third place as a disappointment.
He is just relentless, always on the attack.
Win, focus, killer instinct. This win, but win fairly and be the best.
Very intense. Very intense competitor.
You know, it's a sport where you're going against your, not only Mother Nature, but a lot of them are dear friends that you spend a lot of time socially with and everything else. And then you want to go out there and beat lumps on their head if you can.
In sailing circles, Buddy's competitiveness is legendary.
He could be pretty mean sometimes. You know, he would use a foul language when he was tough on you.
He was very tough. He let everybody know if they were making mistakes and that mistakes were not allowed.
I remember sailing with him one time where he kicked me in the butt because I hadn't moved quickly enough on a boat, and I was young. And I remember looking back at him and he just sort of smiled at me to get going, you know.
Yeah, I get a little fired up. Sometimes it helps me to be fired up. My tactics are better. My adrenaline keeps me going longer.
He'd be the first down on the dock in the morning and the last to leave in the afternoon, and out there on the water all the time. And yeah, Buddy was a tough taskmaster, no doubt about it. But he pushed himself really hard, and people respected that.
Training for the 1987 America's Cup, Jobson experienced Buddy's intensity firsthand.
We're training in 12 meters with the Canadians in Victoria, British Columbia. And the night before, we had about 2 feet of snow, and it's really cold, and it's blowing hard. And I remember we had a crew meeting that morning, and some crew member got up and said, "Buddy, since we're not going to be able to sail today, I've arranged a gym, and we can do some workouts and play some basketball." And Buddy Melges says, "Well, there's one guy that doesn't want to sail today. Who else doesn't want to sail today?" You know, I look around, you know, who's going to put their hand up now? So we go down to the boat and put all the clothes on we have, shovel the snow off, and we go out sailing.
In his teens and early 20s, all of Buddy's wins were in scows and ice boats sailed in the upper Midwest and Great Lakes near his home in Wisconsin. But in 1956, he got the itch to find out how he stacked up against the best of the best.
When I went off and sailed other classes just to test my own self against the best sailors in the world.
First, he set his sights on the Mallory Cup, the U.S. Men's North American Sailing Championships.
At the time, in the late 50s and 60s, the Mallory Cup was probably the biggest event outside the America's Cup in the United States. All the top players in sailing were trying to get into it. You had to qualify from your area. In his first Mallory Cup, he was up against Bus Mossbacher and Ted Hood.
Mossbacher and Hood would go on to win America's Cups, and both were inducted into Sailing's Hall of Fame. Buddy didn't win the Mallory Cup in 1956 and lost again in 1958, but he didn't quit.
Overcoming adversity is defined what Buddy Melges was all about, finding a way to win after he hasn't won.
Buddy kept working, and in 1959, he broke through.
So it was a big deal at the time. It gave him some recognition that he hadn't gotten before. People in the Midwest knew about him, but people on the coast didn't know about him. After winning the Mallory Cup, everybody knew about him.
Buddy went on to win 3 Mallory Cups in a row, something that had never been done before and wouldn't be repeated for another 40 years.
And it's really, as far as I know, one of the first times that he sort of ventured out of the scow world and just kicked some butt.
And I said, "Well, what are you going to do now?"
Bill Benson, you know, he's in the National Sailing Hall of Fame, and he grew up with Buddy in Lake Geneva.
I said, "Well, what about the Olympics?"
Benson says to Buddy, "Hey, we should go sail in the Olympic Games. Why don't we do a Flying Dutchman class?"
We thought, well, this is going to be a no-brainer for us.
So they went off to a regatta. They didn't win, and maybe they were below Buddy's standard, finishing 5th or 6th.
And boy, we got it handed to us, big time.
And Buddy basically said, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if we could compete." And Bill said, we'll get better.
We wanted to get to the Olympics. We wanted to get to the Olympics. That was our mindset.
And they practiced all winter until the ice came on Lake Geneva. And they springboarded to Tokyo Olympics '64. And they ended up with a bronze medal, which probably, you know, it was nice that he got a bronze medal, but it wasn't a gold medal. And Buddy wanted a gold.
Buddy decided it was time to move on to another class. He chose the toughest one he could find, the Soling.
It drew a whole bunch of really good sailors around the world to this new class.
Buddy knew he'd need a top-notch crew to compete against the ridiculous array of Olympic medalists and world champions rushing to the Soling class. He already had Bill Benson, but he needed to add a 3rd sailor, and he went looking for some muscle.
Bill Allen was a tough Midwest scow sailor, hockey player.
Yeah, we were all in good shape. I mean, I was young, you know, I was still had some hockey abs on me.
The crew augmented Buddy Melges perfectly.
Bill Benson was Very intelligent boy.
We called him the professor. You know, we kidded him about it.
I'm not sure people today appreciate just how smart Bill Benson was.
He could bring in everything that was outside in the world in that particular class, analyze it, talk to me about it. We'd change this, change that.
Oh yeah, we were a good team. I had ideas, and he thought, we'll try that.
I had so much fun sailing with those guys.
Never had a crew like that. Well, he was the best crew at that time that I ever had on a boat.
The Olympic sailing trials were raced in San Francisco. Buddy's soling crew got off to a rough start.
We got fourth in the first race, and then in the second race, we broke our mast, so now we've got a forward, did not finish. My recollection from there on is we just dominated.
The threesome came back from 8th place to win a spot on the U.S. Olympic team. Buddy found an international sailing legend waiting for him at the games.
When we got to the Olympics in '72, one of the great sailors in the world, Paul Elstrom, was there.
And Paul Elstrom had 4 gold medals and a Star World Championship and 505 Worlds. And
one of the 1 or 2 best sailors in the world.
Elstrom, he was the overall the most successful Olympic sailor in the history of sport.
And we just smoked him. We came in, I think the first race, we had a 7.5-minute lead on the fleet.
The '72 Olympics called for 6 races in the soling class, but Buddy's performance was so dominant, he had the gold wrapped up after just 5. The American team from Lake Geneva took 3 firsts, a second, and a third.
All the biggest names in the sport at the time were sailing solings, and Buddy crushed them.
But he just sailed the hell out of the boat, as we say, beat him like a borrowed mule, just killed him.
Winning that gold medal in the Olympics up against Paul Elstrom had to be one of his great achievements, and he didn't just win it, he demolished the competition.
Melges, Junior, USA.
It's such a big deal. I think we kind of took the sailing a little bit for granted, but boy, when they hang that gold medal around your neck, it's big time.
It's all just normal celebration until you got the medal awards ceremony, and then when all of a sudden they play the Star Spangled Banner, and the hair in the back of your neck starts to tingle, and you know you made it happen. That's something.
Winning Olympic gold was rewarding, but true to form, Buddy went looking for a bigger challenge. He took aim at one of the toughest classes in the history of the sport, the star class.
Usually somebody that has some success in other classes comes to a new class, they say, oh geez, here comes a hot shot to take our goodies, and I've never felt in the star class that was any effect whatsoever. It was, come on, try it, Melges, was more the attitude.
The star class is the king of them all. I mean, the star was designed in the early part of the 20th century and still attracting the absolute cream of the crop sailors.
The world's best sailors are sailing stars, there's no question about that.
Dennis Conner had won the star class twice and was the reigning world champion when Buddy showed up to challenge in 1978.
The year before, Dennis Conner won every race. And before that series started, we were having a couple of pops together, and he said, Buddy, he said, I'm going to win 3 World Starboat Championships in a row. I said, I don't know, Dennis. I don't think you're going to win this one.
Buddy was right. He beat Conner in the '78 Worlds. Conner came in second.
It wasn't even close. He didn't win every race, but he won almost all the races in that Star Worlds. And then, just to put a period on it, he came back a year later when the Star Worlds were in Europe, and he won it again.
To win 2 in a row is Nobody does that, as they say. But Buddy did.
That's his level. He could win a world championships any boat he wanted to. Any boat he could do, I'm convinced.
There aren't a lot of sailors who have won the number of national and international championships that Buddy has.
But Buddy's a phenomenon. You know, I've studied him a lot, and Buddy in our era stands out. I've sailed with all the best names in the sport, all of them, and Buddy's a cut above.
Construction is well underway on the yachts commissioned for the America Cubed Syndicate. The cost of the boats will eventually run upwards of $20 million. Bill Koch decided to parlay his fortune, his modest sailing experience, and a near devotion to science and research into a serious run for the 1992 America's Cup. And if Koch was putting his reputation on the line, the campaign would lean on another passion: technology.
America's Cup is a great platform for engineering and science and everything else that goes with it. Because you never say, whoa, in a horse race, and this is another horse race. It was a horse race for money, it was a horse race for design, sales, everything.
Technology was critical because it determines how fast the boat is. And only fast boats win.
Fundamentally, the America's Cup is a technology war. It is who can come up with the fastest boats, and that's what's intrigued so many wealthy people to play. They want to come up with a faster boat. The America's Cup is played by people who have everything but want a little bit more.
I started a research program on what makes a boat go fast, doing all kinds of tests on different types of designs of boats.
We have done over 50 tank test models and about 150 wind tunnel tests.
And we tested something like 40 different designs. We tested 250 keel designs. Designing sails, new materials for sails, and what you wanted to do was to get the fastest boat. I didn't care how it looked and how it felt. All I cared was how fast it was.
Not caring how it felt was almost blasphemy to a self-proclaimed seat-of-the-pants sailor like Buddy.
I don't care how much engineering and technology you're putting into it, what Mother Nature does to you out there. Sometimes it can't affect in the wind tunnels and in the tanks.
I mean, the strength of Bill Koch is he's got a very good analytical mind. This is a smart guy with analytics. And he also had the money and the wherewithal to launch all kinds of research projects that even Buddy Melges wouldn't think of.
Many in the media assumed Koch thought technology was the only thing that mattered, and that Buddy looked at the science as a waste of time and money. Neither was true.
You know, Bill launched dozens of these projects, and some of them actually were faster and made the boat faster. And Buddy, to his credit, embraced all of it.
If Bill Koch was the mad scientist, Buddy was his ace test pilot.
As far as crunching all those numbers, that's beyond me. That's too much science and stuff like that. After they put it all together and put it on the water, I could tell them what I liked about the boat, and maybe if we did this, we could do that, and it would improve the performance of the boat. That's the kind of stuff I'm good at.
I hereby christen thee Jayhawk. God bless her and all who sail on her.
When Joan Koch christened Jayhawk, it was just the first of 4 massive yachts built for America Cubed. While funding an America's Cup run had never been cheap, this new international America's Cup class took costs to a whole new level.
When Bill Koch came on the scene, they nuked it. Bill said he spent $67 million on 1992. That's an awful lot of money.
With so much money invested, the various America's Cup teams went to great lengths to protect their technology and find out what the competition was doing. At times, the reconnaissance and spy games played by the different camps bordered on the comical, including the use of water cannons and fast-moving tenders to shoo away infiltrators. Koch was steadfastly committed to a campaign based on technology, but he came to respect Buddy's intuitive powers, to feel the wind and the water.
We were thinking about a technological way to read the wind a mile or 2 miles ahead of you. Hired some MIT scientists to do it. And then one guy came up with the idea of having a camera on top of the mast.
He was going to develop a camera for the top of the mast that would be able to read the velocity of wind that was coming upon the boat, and also the direction from where it was coming and how it affected the sea and everything else.
So what we did was that we put a camera up there, and we asked Buddy at the same time, the camera's taking pictures, is that a header? Is that a lift?
And he spent, $250,000 trying to develop a camera, but it wasn't critical enough. And with all that going on, I said to Bill, why don't you give me the $250,000, because I'm already doing that for you.
So then we took all the data down and compared it, and we found that Buddy was 50% more accurate than the camera. So we got rid of the camera.
I'm not big on a lot of instrumentation because I think I can beat the instrumentation. The instrumentation doesn't react until Mother Nature is up on the boat.
Boat speed is science, sailing is an art. Buddy was the artist.
No one's quite sure when Buddy picked up the nickname Wizard of Zenda. It first appeared in print in 1981, and it came from fellow sailors who marveled at what seemed like Buddy's magical powers to see and feel what was happening on the water. Even at age 85, as Buddy takes the helm with his son and a couple of grandchildren, he sees the wind.
It's gonna be a little puffy in here.
Buddy has an eyesight like an eagle.
Besides the sea, when you're looking at another boat on the water, they see what's different.
It's appreciation for what's going on at the boat at the moment and the ability to look ahead.
I'll put a kite up now. Sensitivity to Mother Nature. There's so many things. You use your ears to hear the water going by the hull. That's important.
Of course, sailing is that sort of sensory input times 100. The wind on your face, the feel of the boat under your fanny, the feel of what the wind does to the boat when it comes up. There is so much sensory information to process, but it rewards you when you do that well.
He can see across this lake. He can tell you a wind shift is going on.
Oh, she's a nice day.
And then he knew the wind had shifted over there. Off he goes. Wow.
Well, if we buy my notion that sailing is the processing of hundreds of different variables, it seems like Buddy is doing this at a higher level than anybody else.
Being able to look and camber a sail for the particular wind velocity, ability to point closer to the eye of the wind, and then being able to work the waves. I mean, you like to sail up the wave up and down the wave down. I mean, if you're really concentrating, you should name every wave.
He has great instincts, and he's got you call it a sixth sense or whatever you want, but I think having grown up sailing on lakes gives you an ability to anticipate more than anything else what's going to happen next.
So A, he's fast, but B, he knows what's going to happen next, and he's always, 3 or 4 moves ahead of everybody else. Everybody else is worried about the very next wind shift, and he's already got that calculated, and he's skipping way ahead.
Buddy attributes his elevated senses to a love of the outdoors and growing up in the upper Midwest, where the super-fast scow is king.
And if you can sail a scow really fast, probably some of my success has been because of the foundation of sailing a scow-type boat.
What made him unique was he was very close to Mother Nature. He could stand on his balcony in the morning and he'd say, the wind is going to pick up at around 11 o'clock, between 5 and 6 miles an hour. And he'd be right on.
Because I duck hunt, because I watch a bird come to the decoys and how he uses the wind and all that. That helps my sailing.
This would be the way that Buddy would think. He would look at the way nature was and extend that to the art and science of sailboat sailing.
A sail is like the wing. And the only thing is we're vertical and the wings are horizontal, but they do the same thing. It's the speed of the wind going outside the sail as it matches the speed of the wind going inside that gives you the lift.
Finally, Buddy points to his fascination with speed, which he learned racing ice boats at 80 miles per hour. Buddy won more than 200 ice boat races in his lifetime. His peers and competitors say his passion bordered on the fanatical, like the time in Green Bay when he went out for a test run in howling 25-mile-an-hour winds.
So the ice boats went out and they blew up all over the place. There were masts broken and pieces all over. We came in and Buddy went back out again, sailed around, came back in. Donna almost shrieked and said, "Buddy, what happened?" He, at the time, wore a little fiberglass beanie for a helmet with little leather things. It didn't protect his face at all, so he had ice chips, had cut his face in multiple places. I don't know how many there were, but he had blood all over his face and running down, and Buddy's like, he goes like this and feels his face. He looks at his hand, he says, "Re-entry burns."
Buddy didn't win this regatta in 1999, but he came back 2 years later at the age of 71 and won his 7th Ice Boat World Championship. Across 6 decades of winning, the grand total of national and world championships is somewhere north of 60. There was just one thing missing. For Buddy to be considered among the greatest of all time, he'd have to win the America's Cup.
Oh shit.
This is what learning how to sail a big, new America's Cup yacht looks like.
Get off the wheel, clear the wheel.
Failure is part of the process.
Come on, let us run. 1, 2, 3, 4.
2 full crews and a half dozen alternates, 38 sailors in all, made the America Cubed team. But it only takes 16 people to sail these huge yachts. The question is which 16?
It was intense. There were a lot of people involved. The sailing team was very big because we had 2 boats on the water every day. One of the things that Bill did, one of the departures, was not just to get the best sailors, but recruit people athletes from other sports. So we had people on the boat that had never sailed before. And Buddy would take everybody out that didn't know how to sail and teach them how to sail. And we called it Buddy World. So if the linebacker from the University of Wisconsin was a grinder, when the boat heeled a degree less, he would know instinctively why and what to do about it.
The biggest crew question of all remained unanswered. Who would be the helmsman, the person with their hands on the wheel steering the boat? The America Cubed campaign was unusual in several ways. On most America's Cup yachts, the skipper is the primary helmsman, and rarely is he funding the operation himself. Even though Koch was paying the bills, he knew he might not be the best helmsman, so he tried out several candidates for the job.
Here we go, bearing off.
Gary Jobson had the best resume. He won the Cup 15 years earlier as tactician for media giant Ted Turner, and he had over 2 decades of yacht racing experience. John Kostecki was an accomplished helmsman with 5 world championships and an Olympic medal. Bill Campbell received some consideration, and David Dellenbaugh was a talented tactician with a knack for match racing. And then there was Buddy, and of course, Koch himself.
Helms down!
After 5 months of racing and competing against each other, tensions began to rise. Some of the helmsman candidates and many in the media thought Koch should leave the sailing to the experts and get off the boat.
The America's Cup up until '92 was more star-driven. You'd have a skipper like Dennis Conner, and you'd get the best sailors you could find. It was just about star power, and Bill was the first one that said, you know, I don't need a lot of rock stars. I need just good team members who can execute the game plan that I have. It was a departure for sure.
As for Buddy, he stayed out of the mud and always seemed to be relaxed and having fun.
I got her cooking now.
And Buddy was not splashy, and he didn't want to be the big dog around the dock. He was just doing his work and helpful.
The first major test of the 9 teams competing for the Cup came in the World Championships of the new International America's Cup class,
which was sort of, you know, preseason game. We had 2 boats racing in it. The one I was steering came in dead last, and the other boat came in second to last or third to last. There was a mutiny brewing. Everybody was thinking it was a cluster mess and that we had to make changes. There was a couple of crew members that wanted to throw me out.
Within weeks of the team's dismal performance, heads started to roll. Whether it was defections or firings depends on who you ask. But in the end, 2 key people were gone. John Kostecki left, and Gary Jobson quit to return to his broadcasting job at ESPN.
And Bill Koch, I wasn't doing well with him at this point. All the years on the Maxis, I was racing with him as an amateur. I didn't get paid. I think he respected that. But now I'm a paid employee, and Bill treats paid employees much differently than amateurs that race with him.
Koch scrambled to keep his best sailor and his team together.
Buddy at that time was in a hospital in San Francisco with a horrible back problem. And I knew he was thinking of leaving too.
Buddy was going to go home. He'd had enough.
Buddy sought advice from his good friend, John Bertrand, the skipper who shocked the world with the biggest upset in America's Cup history a decade earlier. Bertrand's Australia 2 broke a 132-year winning streak by defeating the U.S. in the 1983 Cup.
I said to Buddy, look, it's just important to stay, just hang in there here. Putting all the other politics aside, what an opportunity, just give it a good crack.
Well, then I flew up to San Francisco, saw Buddy in the hospital, and I said, Buddy, I made these changes, but we really need you. You got the magic touch on the steering wheel, so we need you. But we need you as a team player. Buddy was sitting there full of morphine and other things, and I was a little worried about it, and he said, well, Bill, I don't believe in giving up. I'm going to stick with you.
He was terrific in a lot of ways. He sort of let the sailors go, and he wasn't directing. He wanted to sail on the boat, and I went along with that 100%.
I think when it comes to push and shove, the right decision will be made on the race course at the particular time that's necessary to change a person in the boat, be it the bow, the middle of the boat, or near the ass end.
With crew assignments settled, a weight was lifted, and the mood lightened up. Buddy and Bill started to have fun with the helmsman controversy.
Oh, here we go.
This is a smooth transition of the helm.
Wait a minute, this might be your boat, but it's my wheel.
The thing I had to do, as far as I was concerned, is make Bill Koch the best sailor I possibly could.
In the end, Koch settled on an unusual strategy. 3 people would share the helm. David Dellenbaugh would steer the starts. Buddy would take over for about 75% of the race, and Koch would be the helmsman the rest of the time.
He was indeed a superb sailor, but the thing that I really was impressed with him, he said, I can't steer the start. I need someone else to steer it. So he recognized that he had some weakness.
In match racing, the start is so much of the outcome of the race. And David Dillenbach was a great match racer, so he would do the circling up of the boat and all this other Mickey Mouse stuff that went on before you went across the starting line. And then I would take over and sail the boat around the course.
I think Bill understood that Buddy was so superior sailing, and Bill wanted to win the cup. So Buddy wasn't going to compromise winning, but he also knew who was writing the checks.
Koch had successfully navigated a crew revolt that could have split his team apart. More importantly, he'd held on to the one sailor he couldn't win without. Someone named Harry Melges has been sailing fast across this lake for 4 generations. Harry Melges Sr. raced here on boats he built himself almost 100 years ago. And it's where he first introduced his son to the sport. Harry Melges Jr., or Buddy, fell in love with sailing from the moment he first stepped on a boat.
Well, it was simple. I think it was at the age of 5 or 6, my father brought an ice boat to me on Christmas. And he had built it. It taught me early on how to fool Mother Nature, and that's what sailing is all about.
Buddy was hooked, and as soon as the ice melted, he was back on the lake.
The next summer, I was presented a dinghy, a cedar, canvas covered, and away I went. So that was my mode of transportation. I didn't have a bicycle until I was a teenager, and but I got around Delavan Lake with my dinghy in the summertime and my ice boat in the wintertime. And my friends were hours sailed down the lake on a nice day.
Okay. Not surprisingly, sailing for fun soon became sailing to win. And Buddy quickly gained a reputation as a talented sailor with excellent instincts. Harry Melges Sr. was happy to supply his son the boat, but the strict German father expected success.
His father drove him hard and was probably pretty relentless on Buddy when he was learning to sail and learning to work on boats and dealing with rigs and sails.
Buddy doesn't complain about his father's methods. In fact, he credits him with inspiring his own competitive fire.
He loved sailing so much as a young man and wanted me to be able to enjoy it. The competition, just sailing wasn't the thing that drove him, as it doesn't drive me. If I'm going out, I'm going around the buoys and try to beat up on somebody else. So.
Harry Sr. would soon start a boat building and sail business, which he grew by demanding hard work and excellence. Buddy remembers his dad as a taskmaster who was unimpressed with second place. Ironically, that's exactly where he placed in his first big regional regatta in 1942. At 12 years old, Buddy squared off against 30 other youth sailors. Coming up short of first didn't sit well with Buddy.
A lot of people, they don't mind getting beat. I have a little problem with that.
It's worth noting that the friends Buddy sailed against were no slouches.
But he's just a regular kid out there sailing like everybody else.
Jane Peggle is just one of several accomplished Lake Geneva sailors. Many have won national and world championships. By the 1946 Inland Lake Yachting Association Championships, Buddy had stepped up to the big leagues of scow racing. Among this fleet of 43 boats was a sea scow called Widgeon, skippered by a 16-year-old future champion. Buddy kept competing and learning, and in 1949, against a fleet of 80 sea scows, he won his first ILYA championship, setting up a pattern of success he would follow for the next 60 years. It's rare to see Buddy Melges shed a tear, but it happens when he remembers the moment he was told he could not marry Gloria, the love of his life. He met her at a sailing regatta in Chicago.
And there was Gloria. And I said, whoa. And I poked my friend Bruno and I said, see that girl? He said, yeah. I said, I'm going to marry her. She was the most beautiful thing I'd seen.
Soon after meeting, Buddy was shipped off to war in Korea. But the two wrote letters and made plans for a life together.
Buddy was gone about a year. And without telling me, he wrote his father and said, take my money out of the bank and go buy Gloria a ring. And at the same time, he wrote my father and asked for my hand without telling me. So I come up here on the train and Buddy's father says, honey, I'm so excited we're gonna go buy a ring. I didn't know what he was talking about. And so I get home and I said, Daddy, did you hear anything from Buddy about getting engaged? And my father said, yes, and I told him no. And I said, you come on, poor Buddy's sleeping in a foxhole and you're telling him no.
Gloria's father later relented and allowed his daughter to marry the young hotshot sailor from Lake Geneva. Buddy had found his true north. Gloria's patience was tested on day one with a honeymoon that included a little business.
We were married and went to the reception and got in the car and drove to California delivering a 20-foot Sea Scout to Lake Arrowhead.
The young Melges family began to grow, and Buddy wanted his kids to be competitive sailors.
Yeah, I mean, Buddy was harassing us because he wanted us out sailing or out of the house. You know, it was a nice summer day. And we had been bugging him for a mini bike because we were into that kind of stuff. And just lukewarm on the whole sailing thing at that point.
You know, and now they're all riled up about that. And I said, you guys, your sister's gone. You take the X-boat and you win the race, I'll buy you a mini bike.
So Hunts and I, my brother and I went out and sailed an X-boat race. I think we used my sister's X-boat. We ended up winning the race.
We got a call. Ha, you gotta buy a mini bike.
They'd actually won the race.
I couldn't believe that.
Buddy took a page from his own father's handbook in both parenting and sail instruction.
He was tough, I guess is the easiest way to put it, but of course loving.
When discussing family, his sons call him Dad, but when the subject is sailing, they call him Buddy.
It was very intense. I mean, Buddy's very intense on a boat when he's racing. So, you know, when you're young, you know, sometimes that's not always a good thing, I think. And it's a hard intensity at times.
I'm very firm and very demanding, and you have to do the simple tacking, the simple driving until you're absolutely blue in the face. And then you become a winner.
So in the Melges family, you have Buddy, who obviously learned a great deal from his father and goes on to be arguably one of the best sailors in the history of the sport. And so the bar for Harry III is set pretty high. Well, Harry goes out and becomes a world-class sailor in his own right.
Harry IV is the next Melges in line. Today he's training at the helm of this 49er.
And he's already one of the finest sailors in the world, and has a ceiling that's just about unlimited.
By age 21, Harry IV had already won U.S. Sailing's prestigious Rolex Yachtsman of the Year award, the same honor his grandfather achieved for the first time some 60 years earlier.
I think my grandpa Buddy did work extremely hard, but he was also a talented sailor at the same time.
Harry III sees striking similarities between his father and his son.
Some of the same traits, you know, his determination, his will to win, never quit, never give up.
When things get tough, just never backing down and not quitting ever.
The Melges reputation for winning is only part of the reason the name is known worldwide. The boat business Buddy's dad started has thrived for more than 75 years in the tiny village of Zenda, Wisconsin. Hence Buddy's nickname, the Wizard of Zenda. Today, the business is known as Melges Performance Sailboats. Still based in Zenda, the brand enjoys success because it continues to launch award-winning, high-performance boats in new classes.
After the 1992 America's Cup, we developed the Melges 24 with Ryko Pugh yacht design, and that kind of put our boat building more on the map than ever. That boat became popular all over the world as kind of the sport boat that kind of started the whole sport boat trend. Buddy racing all over the world really helped spread the Melges brand worldwide.
Buddy's career, family, and business all flourished. His love of mentoring other sailors grew something else, an extended family.
But especially to us here at Lake Geneva, my brother and I, and we have a circle of friends that we've competed against and with. And Buddy has really been like a second father to all of us.
I lived in them. I lived in them every time I was there for 3 years. I was part of the family.
He's been like a father figure to me. You know, he started to take me around the country a little bit with him. So I got to learn a lot, and I went to Europe with him a few times, and he's meant everything, really.
Maybe no one benefited from the warmth of the Melges family more than the Bertrands from Australia.
Gloria sort of just took me under her wing, whether I wanted to or not.
Years before John became a sailing celebrity by winning the America's Cup, he and wife Raza arrived in southern Wisconsin with a young child and a lot of uncertainty. John was coming off a heartbreaking defeat in the America's Cup and was starting a new job at North Sails Worldwide. Raza just needed a friend.
Gloria was always very welcoming to all the sailors in her home. There was great warmth in their home, and people were attracted to that.
So we sort of hung out at different times. And as a result, Buddy became a really important mentor for me as well. You know, for this, an Aussie halfway around the world, but living in the US, I think it was one of the reasons our friendship was extremely good and trustworthy as well.
Our America's Cup leader for the defense of the Cup at the present time, Buddy Melges.
With a short break in racing in the Defender Series, Buddy accepts an invitation to speak at the prestigious St. Francis Yacht Club. At this point in his career, he's a rock star in sailing circles, and tonight, he's got the meeting out of the palm of his hand.
Coming from the Midwest, you know, that little town, Zenda. I know a lot of you guys don't know where Zenda is, but Zenda's so small that the local hooker's still a virgin.
The questions focus on going up against Dennis Conner, what it's like working with Bill Koch, and which boat will be sailed in the finals.
Are we building another boat? No, God, we just got one Saturday. We don't need another. This is our fourth boat. I mean, you have trouble making a decision? Well, yes and no.
Buddy's answer gets a good laugh. The question of choosing a boat to race was a serious one. In the elimination rounds of the '92 Cup, there were only two teams in the Defender Series. America Cubed, who by this time had been nicknamed the Cubans, and Dennis Conner's Stars and Stripes. Conner is one of the greatest America's Cup sailors ever. He's won it 3 times, and he sailed in 9 campaigns. But his reputation includes a devastating loss in 1983, which made him the first American to lose the Cup in more than a century. With limited funding, Conner raced just one boat, USA 11. Koch, on the other hand, had deep pockets. He used the Defender Series as a way to decide which of his boats was fastest. In fact, America Cubed had a total of 5 boats. USA 2 was a sparring partner in the early months. Then, Koch spent $5 million a pop building 4 brand new boats: Jayhawk, Defiant, America Cubed, and finally, Kansa. Koch's fleet of yachts battled Conner's single boat through a series of round-robin races, which narrowed the competition down to America Cubed and Kansas versus Stars and Stripes. Because of the high cost of the yachts, Dennis Conner felt like he was the underdog, even though he was the defending champion.
My biggest problem was I didn't have the money to develop a fast boat, so I had the slowest boat. So I was like pushing it uphill. So we had to win using our guile and our sailing ability. Sailing is just a part of the America's Cup, 20-30%. The first, as I told you, the single most important thing is the money. Show me the money.
You know, there were a few people in the sailing world at that time that, you know, had huge name recognition. Dennis, one of them, and Buddy Melges.
Well, guys, in the 2 times that 9 has lined up against 18, we kicked Buddy's ass.
Well, I'm sorry about that, Bill, but you gotta go kick Dennis's ass.
You know, they're intense rivals. Look, Dennis Conner has a lot of respect for Buddy Melges. I mean, the way Buddy handled him in the star class. There's no acrimony that I've ever seen. I think they thrive on having somebody good to play against. So I think it's mutual respect.
Buddy was unique because he performed best under pressure and when the stakes were the highest. But he'd never faced a challenger like this. Conner was far superior in America's Cup experience, and his record of winning was unmatched.
There's no more fierce competitor in the world that I know than Dennis Conner.
As expected, the Defender finals came down to America Cubed going toe-to-toe with Conner's Stars and Stripes. The first team to win 7 races would advance to the Cup finals. Bill Koch and David Dellenbaugh spent some time at the wheel, but it was Buddy driving the boat the majority of the time, and always when the racing was tight. The Cubans came out strong and won the first 2 races.
On the first tack, obviously, we were ahead of Stars and Stripes, just a boat length or so. Went down that first run and threw a fake jibe that they took it hook, line, and sinker. From there on, we were in control the entire race.
When America Cubed won the 3rd race, going up 3 races to none, it looked like the match might be a rout. Then Conner came roaring back, winning 4 of the next 5 races and tying the series 4-4. The America Cubed camp was more than a little shaken.
Here was Dennis spent $25 million. I spent, at that point, $60-some million. And here we're going to get thrown out.
Koch felt Buddy's extraordinary sailing talent might actually be working against him and the team.
And Buddy is such a good sailor, particularly in small boats. But in a big boat, you know, with 15 crew members, he would start telling the trimmer how to trim it.
Let me get the jib up. Jib up, go.
He would tell the grinders how to grind.
I can remember Buddy yelling, "God damn it, girls, get your head out of the damn boat."
I swear to Christ, I can attack and make it.
You couldn't do all that stuff. So we lost some races.
Koch decided to have what he calls a come-to-Jesus meeting of his helmsman, tactician, and navigator.
And said, you know, Buddy, you can't tell everybody what to do. Buddy, you got to keep your damn mouth shut. You know, don't yell and scream at everybody. Buddy was sitting over there. I thought he was pouting. And finally he spoke up. He said, I had a cob up my rear end. But what was wonderful about him, see, is that he grasped what we were trying to do, and he thought what mistakes he made. How many stars can do that? Very few, unless they're ones that really want to win. But he said, if we all work together and do a team, we could win.
America Cubed won the next 3 races and clinched a spot in the America's Cup final.
We had a faster boat, and Dennis did a lot of wonderful things to make his boat quicker, but it couldn't compete.
1,
when Buddy put his ego below the ego of the boat, we could win anything.
Regardless of who had the bigger ego, America Cubed had survived 18 months of training and a major crew shakeup, and won a grueling Defender Series by beating the greatest America's Cup skipper in the history of the sport. Buddy and crew would soon step into the ring against another heavyweight, Paul Kayard, the skipper of the Italian team Il Moro di Venezia. This is heaven on earth for Buddy Melges.
You gotta turn around and look at this.
He's in a boat, going fast, with a son beside him and a grandson on the water, going even faster. At the helm of this 49er is grandson Harry Melges IV. This two-man team is just the latest to benefit from Buddy's legacy of teaching and sharing.
He's fun to talk to, and every time I'm talking to him, I hear some crazy story, but I'm always learning from him.
I aspire to get an Olympic medal, win world championships, everything that he did in his lifetime. It just shows you that it doesn't matter where you're from. If you work hard enough and put time into it, then it can happen.
I wouldn't ever call anything that he did having a theory about anything because it wasn't that complicated. Yet with the time that we spent together, he was always teaching me something. And he'd say, God, look at that smokestack up there. That smokestack is 7 miles away out on the shoreline. He'd go, the smoke is turned way to the right. It was really the first time in my mind that I sort of got how far he was looking out there at things that were happening on the race course.
Buddy's appetite for teaching is the stuff of legend around the Lake Geneva Yacht Club.
We've had experiences out here where we were practicing in the early spring, and when Buddy was up in his house on the hill in Fontana.
Sort of sits up on a bluff, he'd have his binoculars out and he'd be watching us sail.
We would get a call on our cell phone telling us that we had done something wrong in a jibe or a tack.
Sure enough, he was watching from his house with his binoculars and would critique and give me pointers, about my day's sailing and some of the mistakes and good things that I did.
You'd come in and he'd go, "Nice racing, Charles, but you can't cleat that main sheet. You got to work it all the time."
I mean, Buddy's been right there with us the whole way, helping us, coach us, teach us, mentor us, practicing on the boat with us, racing the boat with us, racing other boats against us.
They got good pressure over there now. He should have jibed 100 yards earlier, but we'll see.
Buddy's passion for teaching has produced a number of disciples with their own credentials.
Even when I was sailing my best, Buddy would have a list of things that I did wrong all the time, always improving us.
Well, he's kind of like always been an idol around here, from when I was really young. He would always take me aside, tell me what I did wrong, rather than right, usually.
And so everybody got better because of Buddy.
At least part of the legend of Buddy's teaching stems from the fact that he had a language all his own.
Anybody that knows Buddy knows his buddyisms.
Well, one of my favorite buddyisms is start first and then increase your lead.
Start first, stay out in front, increase your lead. Nothing to it there after.
Start first and increase your lead.
Exactly.
He said, you present your boat to Mother Nature.
Present the boat to Mother Nature. Well, okay, now what?
I look at the horizon, I look straight forward. Now I can present the boat for Mother Nature before she ever arrives on the scene.
There's a legend that he would look up on the top of the bluffs and see which way the cows were facing.
What he would say, you could tell which way the wind is blowing because the cow stands with his butt to the wind.
Well, he was pretty good at making up words and using them in sentences.
Maybe a little bit quicklier. Quicklier. Much quicklier.
We're the quickliest boat.
How do we make that boat go quicklier?
Quicklier. That means faster. That's not a word,
Well, Gary, it's pretty simple, really. You want to present the boat to Mother Nature, and you want the boat to sail more quicklier than the others. If you do that, you're going to win. Okay, I got it. He's such a buddyism.
The wind is still there. You see the puffs going out? Hey, you gotta name every one of them puffs when you're really serious about this.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. There's a mother puffer that you gotta look out for.
Well, I've never met a world champion that's a normal person. You've got to be screwed up in some manner, in some way, to get out of bed to do extraordinary things. That's the reality of it.
Bertrand holds a master's in science from MIT. Still, he marvels at some of the innovations Buddy created in isolation at his boat company in Zenda, Wisconsin.
He really set new standards of applying technology and innovation to the whole world of sailing. For example, the international sailing class, which he won the Olympics in '72 in Germany, he created a new rig sensation. He created new sails out of this crispy material called yarn-tempered material. Everyone else was running with soft material. But it was all correct. The direction he went was correct. The total package that he created took the international sailing class to a new level.
At times, Buddy probably went too far sharing his innovations. In 1976, it might have cost him an Olympic medal.
I worked really hard to build him a new soling jib, and it was fast. It was fuller up high. It was a little flatter. I said, I'm not making another one. And 2 days later, he came back and he says, you got to make one of those for John Colas. I said, I don't want to give him what you have. He said, yeah, you do. And that's Buddy. And John beat him in the trials with our sails. He beat him. Sheesh.
Buddy's always had this capability to think a little bit outside the box, to see things really well. I remember watching him in the Star Worlds in 1978 in San Francisco, and Buddy Melges came up with a little bit different sail, figured it out, and he just was able to see that. How do I change this so that I get a little advantage over this guy?
Want to put a little alcohol on it? There you go. Thank you, dear. I taught sailing, and the year I taught sailing, the darndest thing, when you're teaching these children, you're coming up with this and that and the other thing about what they should be doing, all of a sudden, things come out of your mouth that you say, ooh, I think I should, work on that a little more. That's a great idea, buddy.
He's really amazing. He always has new stories to share with everyone, and he's really inspirational.
Buddy is present in everything, so you can't avoid the man. I mean, he will find you and he will talk to you. He's just so willing to share his experiences. He's so willing to listen to the kids and give them advice. The benefit for the kids is seeing the passion, seeing the enthusiasm that is ageless, and Buddy is ageless.
I might be sailing in here with a big starboard lift.
He's surprisingly humble for what he's achieved in his life.
I've read his books, and he really is like a dream that I saw yesterday. He's kind of just an inspiration, like someone you can really look up to.
But this is the best training platform in the world, right here. Coming here from Lake Geneva taught me everything I had to know.
Every time I come to San Diego, the red carpet's out, and I walk on it, and I love it.
The fans and the media loved Buddy. He just knew how to connect with people. So, at pep rallies like this one 2 days before the Cup finals, he could do no wrong.
And I'd like to second what Bill had to say about the San Diego Yacht Club Race Committee. It is the best. Keep your peckers up.
But the same level of respect was not offered Bill Koch.
All the press had a field day with me. People were calling me a buffoon, a nutty chemist from Kansas, an idiot.
Part of the disrespect from the sometimes smug yacht racing community came from sailors who thought Koch hadn't been in the game long enough to pay his dues.
I only started sailing in probably 1985. Going in America's Cup in '92. Here I was going in the ring with Mike Tyson as an amateur, hadn't fought before. I was the easy target.
Well, that's a computer that tells you just where you are in the race course.
There was no arguing that Koch's focus on technology had proven a success. America Cubed and the Italian yacht Il Moro had never gone head-to-head, but when comparing boat speeds on the same course, the Cubans were a minute and a half faster. So when polled about who had the faster boat, the news media's overwhelming favorite was America Cubed. But when asked which team had the better helmsman, Paul Kayard won by a landslide. The well-respected California-born skipper had won a world championship in the ultra-competitive Star class and had sailed in 2 previous America's Cups. And while America Cubed only had to beat 1 team to get to the finals, Kayard had to pilot Il Moro through a gauntlet of 7 international teams to earn his spot. Many in the media thought he was due. By a 3-to-1 margin, the experts predicted Buddy, Koch, and America Cubed were about to get crushed.
23 or 4 said America Cube was going to get slaughtered.
The America's Cup Series enjoyed heavy news and sports coverage in 1992, which helped generate enormous spectator fleets. In the first race of the best-of-7 series, a mistake by Il Moro opened the door for America Cubed. The Italian boat was over the starting line early and had to turn back, losing valuable time. Buddy took advantage and drove America Cubed to its first victory.
I think all in all, the crew did an okay job today. We got our stage fright jitters out of the way, and I think we're ready to get serious about our racing the rest of the series.
The next morning, Koch was anything but serious. With his team up 1 race to none, the skipper was confident, maybe a little too confident. In the second race, the fun disappeared quickly. Il Moro and Kayard brought their A-game. The 2 boats were dead even at the start. Kayard sailed smart and guided Il Moro to a 30-second lead at the first mark. America Cube closed the gap several times throughout the race, but every time Buddy tried to pass, Kayard fought him off with shrewd sailing maneuvers. In a photo finish, the Italians just barely held off America Cubed. Il Moro won race 2 by just 3 seconds. At the time, it was the closest race in America's Cup history.
Bill gets the team together, kind of comes angry, and Bill says, well, I want to go through what's wrong.
I said, Buddy, I've got this, I've got my agenda here. And Buddy said, no, I want to lead this meeting.
And Buddy, well, I want to speak first. And Bill says, yeah, well, I got a list of 28 things that we got to fix. And Buddy says,
of the 29 mistakes that were made, I'd made 25. So I said, okay, Buddy, it's your meeting.
It was typical Buddy. He took the blame, didn't let Bill get down on everybody else. He didn't make all those mistakes, but he just wanted to diffuse a bad day.
With the series tied at 1 race each, the pressure was on to get back on track, and America Cubed responded with a vengeance. Buddy and his crew won race 3 by the largest margin of the series.
You couldn't ask for a better boat than what America Cube was today.
Now up 2 races to 1, America Cubed appeared poised to go in for the kill. In race 4, the Cubans built a big lead on Il Moro and seemed in complete control when a near disaster on board almost cost them a crewman.
At the bottom of the zigzag leg, when we rounded up, Peter Finley was taking the reaching strut off and then stepped into a mousetrap of lines.
I stepped in a loop and just got wrapped up and almost got dragged off the boat. I mean, my foot was about 5 feet off the boat.
So I saw his leg getting bent around the cap shroud, so I pulled out my knife and dove down to cut the sheet away so it wouldn't break his leg.
The concern was not necessarily about going in the water, was actually my foot being ground around the shroud and, breaking my ankle and things like that.
He's also tough as nails. it was the right guy to have it happen to, because I think anyone else would have started screaming long before.
The crew scrambled to get Fennelly untangled from the sails, hauled him safely back on board, and still managed to secure a convincing win.
And if everyone hadn't done just what they had done, it would have been 2-2.
Every victory is a nice victory. Like they say in the aircraft industry, every landing you walk away from is a good one, and we'll walk away from this one and like it, I'm sure.
All we have to do is what we've been training to do. I want to tell you, this total team is the greatest team ever.
Just one win away from clinching the America's Cup, Buddy and his crew are anxious to finish the job.
The goal is to smoke them today and have some fun tonight.
Now familiar with their boat, the race course, and the capabilities of their opponent, America Cubed made quick work of Ilmaro, winning the 28th America's Cup.
So the combination of the brilliance of Buddy Melges and the technology of Bill Koch together, the art and science of sailing worked. They came with very different skill sets, and the combination of the two got the job done.
The party continued as America Cube took its victory lap through the spectator fleet back to the San Diego Yacht Club. Bill Koch couldn't wait to get his hands on that trophy. Noticeably, in the celebration after the race, Buddy doesn't appear prominently in the television coverage. He seems to hang back, out of the limelight, to give Koch his moment in the sun. A final show of respect and gratitude to the man who helped seal Buddy's place in sailing history. Buddy calls it his greatest achievement.
The science and the engineering, and then the crew work, getting them all to understand it, was really something.
Buddy ended up being the primary helmsman. Was 62 years old, by far the oldest helmsman in the Cup, but only a Buddy Melges could be good enough.
The challenge for Buddy was not to get swept up in the politics. Because again, someone like Bill Koch, you know, highly motivated, loved being the conductor. But Buddy brought his artistry to the program. And that, in my opinion, took that program to another level.
Just to highlight one individual, I've said many times that when I first started crewing on starboats, Buddy Melges was one of the kings of sailing, and he certainly is the king of sailing today.
Paul Kayard's praise for Buddy is heartfelt and genuine. The skipper of Ilmaro has known Buddy for more than 20 years, and their friendship runs deep. After losing the America's Cup, he sought out his old friend and adversary to congratulate him and show his respect. Kayard is not alone. A distinguished list of world-class sailors, friends and competitors know that Buddy deserves a special place in sailing history.
One of a kind, unique, brilliant, talented.
Buddy was the Leonardo da Vinci of sailing, globally. It's a big statement, but you know, again, from my perspective, he's the greatest sailor that the United States has ever produced.
He's won everything he's ever been involved with. He's in every Hall of Fame that he could possibly be in.
Arguably one of the greatest sailors in the history of the sport.
Buddy Melges' biggest contribution to sailing, excelling at an extremely high level, setting a high standard for others to emulate, and I think the whole sport of sailing in the United States is a lot better as a direct result of the example that Buddy Melges set.
His application of innovation, world class. His application of how to train at a higher level, absolutely world class. And his application of sailing on the racetrack with boats around him, absolutely world class. Pretty impressive stuff.
He has so many facets. I would say I can't pick one legacy except to be one of the greatest sailors of all time.
Surprisingly, many of the people who know him best don't even think winning was his highest priority.
I'm convinced it's not the most important thing in the world to him. I think his family is the most important thing in this world. Gloria and the kids and the business. But if it was the most important thing for Buddy to win a sailboat race, he would win.
So whether he won or lost wasn't the end of his world.
At the bar after the race, he is just another one of the guys, you know, swapping stories and helping people out, offering a friendly critique.
Well, Buddy Melges is a little different on land than he is on the water. He's a good time guy. He likes to tell jokes. He's also more sensitive than people realize. If something doesn't go his way, it does affect him.
He even cries a little bit when he wins something big. He won't tell you that, but he does.
But there's not a drum roll when he walks in the room. He's a very humble person, considering everything.
He's a down-to-earth human being. He'll go hunting, he'll go fishing, he'll go sit on the dock and drink a beer and talk with you about your kids. You know, he's not just all about, you know, look at me, I'm a big sailor.
I don't know who come up with the wizard stuff, but it just sounds like it went well with Zenda, I guess.
I just cannot tell you how much I admire Buddy, what he means to sailing, what his contributions to sailing have been.
The legacy and the imprint that he's left in terms of sailing has been quite extraordinary. Indelible mark that Buddy has left will and has influenced sailing, you know, for a long, long time.
No, there's no legacy. You start first, you stay out in front, increase your lead, and always sail around on the starboard tack.